Okay. Well, welcome to, I think we're the last session of the day on this particular theatre. This is Fulfilment Made Easy, how marketplaces can help. You may wonder if that's an odd topic, marketplaces managing the final mile aspect of post-purchase, but I've got two industry experts here who are going to hopefully talk us through that. Before we get to them, my name's Neil. I work for a company called Viva. We're a payments company and I run the marketplace platform division of that business. And two experts here are both industry veterans and also work at marketplaces. So using their insights, we can hopefully understand how marketplaces can influence that final mile post-purchase customer experience. So guys, let me introduce you. So we've got Glen and we've got Lily from SHEIN. Glen's from a marketplace called Plain and Simple. You'll do a better job than I at explaining it. And Lily, you're from SHEIN. So Glen, maybe introduce us first of all to yourself.
Sure. Then
to Plain and Simple, and then maybe a little bit about how the business operates and maybe we'll get on to final mile. So let's do introductions first. And
sure, yeah. Hi everybody, my name is Glen Stocco. I'm co-founder and managing director at Plain and Simple. We're a UK-based marketplace for building materials, primarily big and bulky building materials. So what we do is we connect independent builders, merchants with online DIY consumers. Before this, I started my career as a consulting engineer, and then I was working in another marketplace business, so this is really a combination of building materials, marketplaces, perfect marriage, and a need that the UK actually, we found, really has.
Cool. Lily.
That's great, thanks. So my name is Lily. I've been leading essentially the build-up of our marketplace at SHEIN Group. For those that don't know, SHEIN has been in the industry for a few years, since 2012, and essentially in the market for 12 years. Very much focused initially on private label fashion, and then in the last year and a half, we realized a huge opportunity and also consumer demand in our platform looking for branded products. And that's one of the reasons a year ago, at the end of the summer last year, we decided to launch a third-party marketplace, serving the needs of those consumers coming into our platform, not only in the UK, but Europe, but also in the US. So a third-party marketplace that serves, like third-party brands from the likes of Nike, Mattel, Hasbro, and beyond that.
Cool, thank you. So we've got maybe 35 minutes to rattle through some content. I saw this morning, Co-op have just launched a 24-hour grocery delivery with Uber, Just Eat, and Deliveroo. First of all, interesting play from a company that is historically quite, I would say, set in its ways a little bit in terms of how Co-op operates, but using that maybe as a springboard into the conversation for you guys. Glen, you're big and bulky marketplace. Obviously you're solving a commerce problem, but then you're also solving a logistical problem, right, for your end customers, but also for your merchants, right?
Yeah, so what we're doing is really, customers are used to buying their groceries online, having them delivered to their door. Building materials historically has been something that you've had to go, put in your vehicle, somehow figure out a way to get it to your house, put it where you want it to be. All the while, we have builders merchants who have been doing this for the trade for decades. So what we're doing is we're actually allowing consumers to shop where the builders shop, getting their materials delivered right to their door, having a big bulk bag of granular material delivered right where they need it at their home, rather than having to figure out a way of getting that to their property. So consumer demand, you're talking about Co-op, there's this expectation of convenience that we as consumers now have. And finding innovative ways of doing that by, in our case, having the retailers fulfill that delivery is what we're doing.
And are you, in that sense, I guess you're solving two issues there, right? Because you're solving a customer or consumer issue who maybe can't or doesn't want to be able to have that problem, but you're also then solving what we would call your seller problems by allowing them to utilize maybe the existing infrastructure they've got.
Exactly.
Trucks and lorries and everything else, right?
Exactly, so we're basically sweating the asset that a merchant already has in place with a higher margin retail customer, because they can charge a higher price to a DIYer than they would to a trade customer. So they're happier than they could be. They're getting sales from higher margin customers, putting it on the same lorry that's going out to a trade customer and getting the order.
And Lily, obviously you're completely opposite end of the scale in terms of products, right? Are you trying to solve the same issues here with your logistics and final mile infrastructure? Or are you coming at this from a different angle completely?
I mean, like for us, we are an enabler for a lot of these companies that will serve our consumers. We have solutions that they can leverage similar to kind of like, we call it SHEIN Fulfilment Services. But most of our sellers and companies and brands that we work with, they have their own last mile delivery services. And really they, as long as they can meet the expectations of our consumers of deliveries between 3 to 5 days, that's where most of our sellers sit. We're not thinking of, like, can you deliver in 24 hours? That's at least not the consumer expectation that we have in our platform at this moment. That may change, and if that is the case, we'll definitely adapt and make sure that we can service those consumers at those more efficient SLA times.
And so are you solving customer expectations, or are you simply allowing your retailers and brands to kind of do what they do best and just sort of saying, look, you know what you're doing, we're not going to try and step on your toes or tell you how to run your business. As long as you get your goods to our customers, then we're happy.
The most important thing for us is really the consumer, and that's one of the reasons, if I were to just take a step back, is what we built a new business model, which is a third-party marketplace. It really comes down to what consumers are willing, or what is the expectation of the consumers are, and what are the products, brands, and items they want to buy. So if the consumers define that today they want a 24-hour delivery, we'll definitely work towards that goal. We work with partners and businesses and brands to be able to match that expectation. But what we don't do is essentially kind of like defining what consumers want in our platform. And I think overall our model has been very much consumer driven. That's why our private label model is not a B2C private label model, but it's an on-demand private label model. We don't produce hundreds of thousands of items and storage them around the world to wait for our consumers to go and buy them. We only produce when the consumers place an order, have made the payments, and then that order flows into our manufacturing facilities that we partner with and we don't own, and they produce that for us and we send it to the end consumers. So our traditional business model, it's been always about what consumers want and how can we deliver that in a really optimized way.
If you talk to a politician that ran a democracy, they'd probably tell you that customers don't know what they want. They need to be told, right? But it sounds like you're looking at it completely differently. You're saying, okay, you come to us, you tell us what you want by buying it, and we'll just manufacture it and ship it to you straight away. You've got, I guess, I wouldn't say a similar issue, but you've got customers coming to you wanting certain very specific items, right? That they can't get elsewhere, or they aren't necessarily available.
They're commodity items. So from our perspective as a marketplace, marketplaces work really well when it's a commodity-based product. You don't really care where it's coming from as long as it's going to be a quality product, trustworthy seller, and a good price. So building materials are perfect for that.
Yeah. And I guess coming back to one of my questions earlier on is about what problems are you solving here, whether it's supply side driven or it's demand side, customer side driven. Obviously there's been a huge swathe of solutions customer side more recently, I guess. You look at lockers, Pudo style delivery solutions, Amazon have got their lockers, Vinted have got Vinted Go lockers. No one's saying you should have SHEIN lockers, but there's a lot of solutions being...
Partner with a lot of providers.
Right, okay. But there's a lot of solutions being put into the market to solve what I would say are consumer-driven issues, but I guess there's a question, it's all a bit chicken and egg, isn't it? If you allow the customers that choice, then you've got to ultimately solve the problems they're serving you. But
and you also have the chicken and egg problem for a marketplace. You need to be providing value to both sides of your marketplace. You need to be providing value to your customers as much as you're providing values to your sellers. So from a seller perspective, it has to be simple to use. Otherwise, they're not going to be using it. And also, you need to generate revenue for them.
So before I came here, I looked at ChatGPT, everyone's favorite tool, to try and find a solution, from A-level students writing essays to my daughter who's 8 trying to solve a maths problem. So ChatGPT gave me a very succinct summary of what a a great final mile solution is, and I'm going to try and read it out as quickly as I can. So you need to understand your customer expectations, you need to optimize your delivery options, you need to leverage technology, you need to have inventory management, you need to have final mile delivery network, you need to focus on customer experience, you need to have sustainability options, and you need to improve and optimize. So, once you've done that all tomorrow, how are you then solving some of those problems that your customers are throwing up to you? Because I guess, are your problems coming to you from a product side? I want roof trusses when all you're giving me is sharp sand. Is it supply side customer driven problems, or are you solving those issues from the seller side, saying, actually we've got a load more inventory, you're going to answer this differently, I think, but are you giving customers choice through inventory, or are you solving problems through availability?
I think it comes back to essentially the laws of supply and demand. We didn't build the marketplace because we thought it was a good business. We built a third-party marketplace in the last 12 months, mainly because our consumers are searching for those products and brands. And as consumers, you search for products on our app because you want them. That's the behavior that you're implying. And you can search those products once, twice, 3 times, but after the 3rd time, if you're not able to find the products and buy it, then likelihood that that consumer is coming back, it's close to 0.
Yeah.
And then if I were to take a step back, consumer acquisition these days, it doesn't matter if it's in the UK, Spain, or in the US, it's incredibly expensive. Whether you use Google Ads or you use Facebook or any of the acquisition methods that you can think about that. And the reality is that we as a company and as a platform, we have more than 350 million consumers globally. We're still growing that consumer base at a very healthy growth rate on a quarter-to-quarterly basis, and we don't want to lose any of those. So in order to do that, you need to, 1, delight your consumers, 2, make sure that they can find whatever they want. It doesn't matter if today it's a home item or kind of like a Nike Dunk Supreme crossover, because if your consumer is looking for that, that's what you should be delivering. And taking that step back, that's one of the reasons why we went and built that third-party marketplace. We don't own Nike products or Dyson products or Estée Lauder, L'Oreal cosmetics. But we know that by partnering and working with sellers that do own those products, we can fulfill that demand from the consumers. And that's the most important piece when we were thinking about how do we upgrade that experience and keep on delighting those consumers as we keep on growing. A lot of our consumers nowadays are in that millennial kind of like phase of their lives. So they're like 30 years old roughly. When they started shopping on our platform, they were probably between 16 and 18.
Yeah.
Now, I know you all look incredibly young, but think about when you were 16 to 18 years old, your income essentially depending on your parents. So whatever your parents were giving you on a monthly or weekly or quarterly basis, that was the money that you have to go and spend in things. And those things could be entertainment, buying products, so on and so forth. Now, a lot of our consumers have been on our platform for 7, 8, 9, 12 years, and now they're at the age of 30 plus and minus, which means that their disposable income actually has increased 20 times to 50 times, depending on the industry you work for. And with that, actually, their consumption preferences have actually gone up.
Yeah.
Instead of buying the cheaper end or the more accessible price point end of our platform, which is the 1P, the private label that we have created, they're looking at buying brands because they relate brands with high quality and they want to wear brands. And that's one of the reasons why, as we continue serving that consumer, which is the same consumer that we started when we were like in 2012, they have evolved. And as a platform, and obviously as a technology company, we need to evolve to keep on serving better those consumers, because what they wanted 12 years ago maybe is slightly different to what they want fast forward today in 2024, because their incomes have actually
both
gone
from
up.
a product and a brand's perspective, right? Interesting that your entire business model is then solving that consumer demand. It's not just because someone dreamt up the idea that you're fulfilling a genuine need, right? And I guess that's similar to you.
So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, are we focusing on the seller problem for the sellers or the buyers.
Yeah,
I guess we're
yeah.
doing both, really. I don't know if anybody here has ever gone to one of the national shed stores to buy building materials, kind of going up and down the aisles trying to figure out what you're going to buy. We're trying to take that kind of uncomfortable experience and look at how you buy fashion online and how you might buy on SHEIN online, and it's a much simpler experience. Do that with building materials. So that's the problem on the buyer side that we're solving. On the seller side, we're bringing them a brand new customer set that they never would have had before. 60% of global e-commerce now is on marketplaces.
Yeah.
And that growth is driven by specialist marketplaces like Plain and Simple for building materials. So we're bringing them that customer set. So we really focus on both sides.
And in terms of those, I guess those 8 or 9 things that I listed that ChatGPT very helpfully gave me earlier on, very easy to say, oh, we'll build that and we'll buy that and we'll rent that. But actually, in terms of being able to put a solution together, you've come at this for a global brand with hundreds of millions of customers. You've actually come at it from quite a simple perspective. You just said, as long as it gets the customer in 3 to 5 days, we're good. Now, you actually said most of your sellers are doing it a lot more sort of expeditedly, and therefore you're not really even managing them, I guess, right? You're just letting them fulfill and kind of do their thing.
Like our consumers have a minimum requirements and expectations, and that's kind of like 3 to 5 days globally.
Yeah.
The reality is that a lot of the companies and brands that we partner with globally, not only in Europe but also in the US and beyond that, they actually can deliver to consumers in 2 to 3 days. It's not because we require that.
Yeah.
That's another way to delight your consumers, because at the end of the day, like you have built an online platform or kind of like storefront on our marketplace, but at the end of the day, that consumer is yours. Whether you're Steve Madden today or Mattel or Hasbro, that's your end consumer in our platform. And that's very important because like a lot of these companies have been operating on e-commerce marketplaces and online for decades, and they've been able to optimize those delivery times. It doesn't mean that, like for us in the future, we'll keep on reducing those kind of like delivery times. We will, as long as we can, like offer great prices and pass on all of those savings to the consumers and also reduce times. Will definitely are things that we're looking at to make sure that we keep on improving our SLAs globally. But the reality is that no consumers in our platform are expecting a 24 to 48 hours delivery, and that's fine, as long as that consumer expectation is aligned to the SLAs, or our SLAs are aligned to the consumer expectation, then that's fine.
So much around expectation management, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to delivery. You come at this slightly differently, I guess, right? No one needs a kilo of whatever you're
building materials,
a ton of sharp sand first thing tomorrow morning.
No, exactly. So what it boils down to is communication. Customers just need to know when's it going to come. And as long as we're very clear with them, it's going to be within 3 days. Our merchant partner gives them a call and says we're going to be there on Wednesday. They're happy.
Interesting point you were making when we were sat out the back there about the tradesman actually now almost being removed from the purchase funnel, right? Whereas historically you just said, right, I need a new bathroom. Can you get me the shower tray, the shower and the tiles?
Yes.
And just make sure you turn up on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I mean, we started the business very much focused on DIY consumers, retail consumers, but what we quickly found out is there's a whole segment of consumers called the do-it-for-me consumers that want to have a tradesperson do the project for them professionally, but they want to buy the materials themselves. So we've been able to kind of fill that gap in the market as well.
And does that play quite nicely then on some of the other marketplaces? Like, I'm thinking TaskRabbit and some of those, marketplaces where you can get the tradesperson.
Yeah,
and
then
also
find my builder, check a trade. Yep, all of those for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Juicen did a study recently. Almost half of tradespeople's customers are telling them that they want to buy materials themselves. So it's very much happening in our sector.
So I had an example recently of, this whole final mile is, you guys are somewhat reliant on a third party to kind of do their duty, deliver the goods on time at the right place. Now, I was waiting for a coffee delivery. I got a knock on the door, but it wasn't my Nespresso pods that I'd ordered when I thought it was going to be, because it was also within the right window of when they told me it was going to be there. But I did get my neighbour's Gusto meal box, and I don't know where my coffee pods went, but I didn't have to sign anything, and it just got left there. So I was kind of left to deduce what had happened, and the neighbours didn't get my coffee pods either. So I don't know. No one knows where they've gone, but I did get a meal kit. But what it proved to me is that the whole system can work pretty seamlessly until you've got the human input somewhere where it was literally the guy getting out the van and just delivered it to the wrong house. But there is always an element of, I guess, non-machine-based decisions and processes that can fail. Probably less so for you, Glenn, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much so for us because you have a whole health and safety aspect when you're delivering big and bulky. If you're delivering decking or fencing, you've got probably 2 people that are going to deliver that, so you need to know how to handle that. But it's the same if you're selling controlled goods, pharmaceuticals, alcohol.
Yeah.
There's different requirements around that kind of last mile deliveries.
Maybe just putting our hats on as customers as opposed to business owners, operators here. A lot of the problems you're solving are ones that are obviously part of the process, whether it's first mile, final mile, whatever it might be. But as customers, you obviously want the experience to be the best possible. But I wonder whether, from a customer point of view, who are we questioning if something then goes wrong? And I guess so. While we're putting processes in place as a business, actually, who's enforcing those decisions on it? Is it, Lily, you mentioned a lot of what you're doing is expectation management from a customer point of view. But I guess a lot of that process is derived from experiences you've had in the past as a business. Yeah. Customers saying, I'm not happy, it's gone missing, someone's stolen it, So I always think it's useful as a business to then think from the other side and say, okay, well, what problems are we solving genuine problems or ones that we just thought of? And I always think final mile is a little bit open to interpretation because I'm never quite sure who ultimately owns the problem and therefore who owns the solution, if that makes sense.
I think, it really comes down to aligning those 2 parts of the business. Because, one, if you're delighting your consumers, you're matching their expectations, and you're able to give them what they want from a product, experience, and also engagement perspective, they will keep on continuing to shop on your platform. And it really comes back to 3 things. One is how you keep on making that experience so great that the consumers keep on going back. That's the engagement piece. Number 2, how do you attract net new consumers? And that's, I think, a very important piece for most companies around the world. It doesn't matter if you're in the luxury industry, mass market, or any categories and verticals that you want. And then last but not least, online has become incredibly what I could call social. So how do you also leverage third-party kind of like levers, like ambassadors and kind of like influencers to keep on communicating with that consumer? Because that consumer is not 24/7 on your app, it's not 24/7 on your kind of like website.
That's true, they're only your customers when they're with you,
exactly.
or when they're shopping with you, right?
And when they're in any other platform,
23 hours of the day, they're someone else's. Sorry, Glenn, go.
Well, for us, it's very simple. The metric for that is Trustpilot.
Very simple.
Trustpilot for us. We have an excellent rating on Trustpilot, and as a marketplace, that's really quite phenomenal because people, to the part of your question, they're rating us. They don't care that we're a marketplace, and it's the sellers that they're buying from. And we're very proud of that rating, and it's because of 2 things. We put a great deal of effort on communicating with the customer, so if somebody gets on our live chat or sends us an email, we've got a response and somebody is there. And the second bit is the relationship that we have with our merchant partners. And we have great processes in place and communication with them so that the whole ordering process goes smoothly. The best Trustpilot reviews are always about the delivery driver. That's the last person they see, and that's who they care about.
Yeah.
And the worst Trustpilot reviews are about the delivery experience. I didn't know when it was going to come. So last mile is key for that.
And it's interesting that ultimately you benefit from the reviews of basically your third party, your suppliers, but as a customer,
and we suffer from the negative.
Of course, yes, true. As a customer, your first port of call, I guess, is always the platform, right? I ordered it from SHEIN, or I ordered it from Plain and Simple. And I guess historically, marketplace has always been quite hands-off. It's like, not my problem. You ordered it from Mattel, or you ordered it from Juicen, or whoever it might be. they need to solve the problem, but actually the problem's yours because the customer's yours.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, we have to triage it.
Yeah. I wonder how much education we need from a customer side to, for them to understand what loop they're in, because they're not in a conversation loop with the brands ultimately, are they?
I think that customers are much more educated than they ever have been around marketplaces because of the Amazon and the eBays and the SHEIN of the world.
Yeah.
So they're not quite there yet, but we're seeing they understand. What are you seeing?
I think it's, like we're coming back to the point of how do you make sure you make the experience unique to the consumers at the end of the day.
All consistent, I guess, right? You always want it to be as good as possible.
We only, across the world, we use kind of like our mobile app as a medium to communicate with our consumers. Everything happens on the mobile app or the website. Most of our consumers use the same app. It's localized in more than 150 countries around the world, more than 50 different languages. So one is delighting the consumers, two is the consistency across not only the private label business, but also the third-party marketplace. And three is really, like being able to engage with those companies and also those consumers all the time.
Right, interesting. I'm going to ask you to do a bit of crystal ball gazing now, because I did a similar panel a few years ago, but I had a whole load of delivery companies on board, final mile, first mile, people sat in between all of those. And Royal Mail said to me, if they could enforce one piece of decision making, it would be uniform letterbox sizes across the UK, so they could guarantee that everything gets delivered. Now, if you look elsewhere, obviously Germany typically has boxes outside your house where you can deposit orders. What's going to change your world in this environment? Is it everyone having large drives that you can put your deliveries onto?
At least in the UK, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think for us, the nut that hasn't been cracked just yet, and there is a demand there's an on-demand requirement sometimes for products. Now, in big and bulky, it's less and less, but I can see a day where people just expect it to be available next day. And the way that
you can't see a day.
I can see it.
You can see a day, sorry, okay.
Consumer demand will precipitate across all verticals, and people will just demand, I want it tomorrow.
Right.
And nobody's been able to kind of crack that nut yet of on-demand delivery for unruly, heavy, ugly items. So we're not there yet, but I can see that being crystal ball years in the future. That's an interesting one.
Lily, what's going to change your world apart from an IPO in about 3 months' time?
I think essentially what's going to be driving our growth is how can we keep on expanding into new categories that we're seeing more demand. I mean, like we're very much focused on a few areas from the marketplace perspective because that's what we see our consumers buying and searching for, which are cosmetics, sporting goods, everything related with kids. Those are the top 3 categories. And we're seeing more and more growth also in...
When we spoke a week or so ago, you were saying you were seeing huge demand for shoes, right? Which instantly solve or create problems, right, in terms of size of shoe boxes, especially if you're ordering multiple sizes and multiple different styles.
Sorry.
For shoes, I said that instantly gives you an issue around your deliveries because the size of the boxes, how they have to be handed over at the door. They can't go through a letterbox.
I mean, like shoes.
Maybe not. Doesn't sound like it.
It's been in e-commerce for quite some time. I think that has not been any of our kind of like top challenges or anything. If we were to have a challenge there, I could say, a lot of our partners like Nikes and Adidas of the world probably could not be able to fulfill that. And they've been delivering shoes online for the last 10, 20 years almost. So, I mean, like, yes, there's sizes, there's colors, but that's something that we have been dealing with and, like serving for the last 12 years across the broader kind of like fashion industry since we started our 1P model. I don't necessarily think that should be a challenge. If it's a challenge for any marketplaces at this time, in 2024, I think probably those companies will have more of a other fundamental challenges rather than just delivering shoe boxes. So, I mean, like the other challenge that most companies will have, especially not necessarily only on marketplaces, but online when it comes to last mile, is theft. I think that's becoming probably the biggest challenge of marketplaces and e-commerce platforms and also D2C websites more than anything else.
As in doorstep theft?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like I don't know, I've seen a lot of that in the US. I think even in social media, they, you know, like there's a lot of videos about how, you know, like some users or people around the world follow DHL vans and FedEx vans to kind of go and steal those products. I don't know if you have seen that, but on social media it's all...
Sorry, that was typically what I meant around shoes, because they're often left on the doorstep, right? And it's very obvious what they are, because they're in big square boxes. I got a pair thrown in a hedge the other week, but I'm having bad luck with deliveries. But and you also mentioned, you know, white goods as you start opening up new categories, electrical items, home appliances. Presumably they present problems around delivery and final mile. And
very much focused on smaller appliances, electronics, you know, like mobile phones and stuff like that. So those are what our consumers are kind of like really seeking. They're not really looking at, can I order a fridge or a TV at this moment? There's small percentage, but still quite limited.
And I guess there's different expectations then around speed, how it gets handed over to a customer, does it come through track delivery? I guess all those different categories present you maybe with different final mile problems that you still put on your sellers.
You know, like we work with a lot of those kind of like last mile delivery companies. So if it's big and bulky, we'll be able to work with those companies and sellers with specific companies, big and bulky companies. If it's kind of like, you know, we work a lot with Impulse among others, etc. here in the UK, DPD, many of the others. In Spain we work with Correos all the time, Segura, many. So, you know, like depending on, we localize that because, you know, like someone like Royal Mail will not be able to deliver a lot in mainland Europe. So in France, and we try to localize that because that's one of the things that you cannot know the local markets as well. Even if you're a FedEx and the DHLs of the world, you're not going to be able to serve 100% of that market. And that's one of the reasons why, from a technical perspective, we are 100% connected to a lot of those 3PL companies, third-party kind of like logistics companies, because that's what our sellers and our business partners really need to be able to fulfill that product to the end consumers last mile.
How does that play out for you, Glenn, in a 12, 24 months time? Marketplace has grown, a lot more vendors, because at the moment all of your vendors do, I guess, what are effectively local deliveries, right? And as you open up maybe much more of a pan-UK approach, do you see your builders merchants maybe competing in order to be able to deliver, or are they always just going to be delivering their own orders?
I think there's an opportunity for them to deliver other people's products as well.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, we haven't broached that topic yet, but it's something that we have considered. You know, if you have the delivery infrastructure in place, you have the facilities to house products, you have the people to deliver them and the vehicles to deliver them, why couldn't you deliver other things? So there's a whole other revenue stream that our merchants could be potentially opening up to.
Yeah. The builder's merchant 1 picking up items from builder's merchant 2 to deliver a customer.
Maybe it's not building materials either.
Right, okay. Interesting. Okay, I think that's it from me. Anything else from you guys, or any questions from the audience? We've got a microphone. Anyone want to ask questions? No? Thank you. Lily,
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.